Welcome back to the deep dive. Looking at the episode counter today, I have to say I'm feeling a little bit sentimental.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Today is a massive milestone for us. We are officially hitting double digits in our retrospective series of Steam and Sorcery.
Episode 10.
It is episode 10. Can you believe we've made it this far without a steam boiler exploding in the studio?
It is a minor miracle, honestly, considering the volatility of the subject matter we usually cover. But yes, episode 10, that is a significant achievement.
And because it's such a big moment, we really felt like we had to pull out the big guns. We couldn't just do a run-of-the-mill review today. We needed something heavy, something that really defines the entire genre we've been exploring. So we're talking about a game that is frequently cited as the most ambitious, the most broken, and maybe the most fascinating role-playing game ever made.
I think I know where you're going with this.
We are talking about Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura.
There it is. It's arguably the definitive title for this entire niche. I mean, if you were to walk into a room of RPG enthusiasts and say the word steampunk, Arcanum is the first, second, and third thing that comes to their minds.
Absolutely.
Released in 2001, developed by the legendary Troika Games. It's a title that even today, over 2 decades later, feels like it's holding together by duct tape, dreams, and just a whole lot of raw ambition.
It's the game that everyone recommends with a massive asterisk attached to it. It's always, oh, you simply have to play Arcanum. It's a masterpiece. It changed my life. But
Yeah, there's always a but.
make sure you install the community patch and don't play it in real-time combat. And for the love of God, save your game every 5 minutes or you will cry.
Precisely. It is a flawed masterpiece in the truest, most academic sense of the term. It reaches for heights that I would argue modern games still haven't touched, but it also has lows that would make a QA tester just quit on the spot.
Yeah, no question.
But the reason we're dedicating a full, extended deep dive to it today isn't just to laugh at the bugs. It's the sheer audacity of the premise. Most fantasy settings, they give you the Tolkien baseline. You know the drill. Elves in forests, dwarves in mines, wizards in towers.
Right, it's all very static and medieval.
Exactly. It's the comfort food of fantasy. But Arcanum takes that Tolkien baseline and crashes it, quite literally, into the Industrial Revolution. It asks a question that very few other games ever dare to ask. What happens to the magic when the light bulb is invented?
Which is such a compelling hook. I mean, you're asking the listener to imagine Middle-earth, but then suddenly Saruman isn't building an army of orcs, he's building a textile factory. And suddenly the elves are getting nervous, not because of some dark lord, but because the forests are being cut down for coal fuel.
And the dwarves.
The dwarves, they aren't just mining for gold to hoard in a mountain, they're unionizing in factories and demanding workers' rights. It's Tolkien meets Jules Verne.
And that is exactly the tension we are going to explore today. We have pulled together a massive stack of sources for this one. We've got retrospective essays from the dedicated Reddit communities who have, basically kept this game alive for years.
Oh yeah, the community is key.
It is. We have deep lore dives from the fandom wikis, archive interviews with the lead developer Tim Kaine, and some incredibly detailed walkthroughs and guides from community legends like Literal One and Xander77.
So our mission today is to really unpack the legacy of Troika Games and how they built this world where fantasy and industry just violently collide. We want to look at the meta-history of the game, the bugs, the community fixes, the sequel that never was.
The sequel that never was, a tragedy.
A real tragedy. And we want to do it with a bit of, I guess, fond remembrance. This isn't a review where we complain about the 2001 graphics or the clunky UI. This is a love letter to a game that tried to do everything, even if it didn't quite finish everything.
It's about understanding the soul of the game.
Exactly. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of steam engines and fireballs, let's start with the people who made it, the architects. Because Troika Games wasn't just any studio. They have a pedigree that is basically royalty in the PC gaming world.
They really do. At the time, they were often referred to as the Dream Team by RPG fans, which is...
That's a lot of pressure to put on a new studio.
It is, but they earned it. You had Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, and Jason Anderson. Now, for those who might not know the history of 90s PC gaming, these are the 3 key figures who created the original Fallout.
Which explains so much about the vibe of Arcanum. I mean, the DNA is right there. If you've played Fallout, you know it's about player choice, grim humor, and a world that absolutely does not care if you live or die.
Precisely. They worked at Interplay, which was a massive studio at the time. But, as often happens in the corporate world, they started to feel stifled. They wanted more creative control. They wanted to take risks that a big, publicly traded company might shy away from. So they left Interplay to form their own company, Troika Games. And Arcanum was their debut title. It was their declaration of independence.
And the name Troika itself is interesting, right? It's a Russian word.
Yes, it refers to a vehicle, like a sled, drawn by 3 horses abreast. It essentially means a group of 3.
Ah,
It
okay.
was a direct reference to the 3 founders, Kane, Boyarsky, and Anderson, pulling the company forward together.
That is very cool. But let's talk about their design philosophy. I've seen this term thrown around in the research notes, and I love it. Design by landslide.
Yes, this is a term that Tim Kane himself has used to describe their approach.
Design by landslide. That sounds chaotic, dangerous even. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means burying the player in options. It was an intentional rejection of the on-rails experience that was becoming common in gaming. The idea was to overwhelm the player with choice and reactivity. They wanted a world with immense depth, where the game reacts to almost everything you do, every choice you make, every skill you pick.
So give me an example of how that differs from a more, let's say, standard game.
Okay, let's take a simple lock door. In a normal game, you have to find the key. Maybe, if the game is feeling generous, you can pick the lock if you're a thief. That's 2 options.
Right. Pretty standard.
In Arcanum, thanks to Design by Landslide, you can pick the lock, you can steal the key from the guard, you can kill the guard and take the key, you can use a magical unlocking cantrip spell to open it,
Or just get violent.
you can use dynamite to blow the door clean off its hinges, you can use a shrink spell to shrink yourself down and just crawl into the door, or you can just find the owner of the building and use your persuasion skill to convince him to let you in,
So we're talking 7, 8 different solutions for one locked door.
at least.
Yeah.
And the game has to account for all of that. And that is where the landslide comes in. The trade-off is polish.
Because it's a coding nightmare.
It's a nightmare. When you try to account for every variable, can the player kill this crucial NPC? What happens if they do? Can they pickpocket the main quest item instead of doing the quest? Can they talk their way out of the final boss fight?
Yeah.
The code gets messy very, very quickly. You are essentially building a simulation, not just a game.
And the ambition was just off the charts. I was reading through the manual, which, by the way, we need to talk about that manual later because it's a book in itself, literally 190 pages.
Incredible.
And the character creation system caught my eye. It's classless, right? It's a point-buy system.
Correct. Most RPGs, especially back then, locked you into a class. You're a fighter, so you hit things. You're a wizard, so you cast spells. That's your box.
And you stay in that box for 80 hours.
Exactly. In Arcanum, there are no classes. You get a pool of character points, and you can spend them on whatever you want.
So you aren't locked into a lane. If I want to play, I don't know, a gnome who practices necromancy, I can just do that.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And the world will react to a 3-foot-tall person raising the dead. People will have opinions about that.
What if I want to play a half-ogre who wears a smoking jacket, invests heavily in persuasion, and negotiates trade deals? An ogre gentleman.
You can do that too. In fact, the game encourages those weird counterintuitive builds. You could be a thief who uses technology to build clockwork traps and automated lockpicks. You could be a diplomat who uses mind control magic to win arguments. The combinations are nearly endless.
And that freedom connects directly to that Fallout pedigree we mentioned. One of the things our sources highlight, specifically from the Reddit retrospectives, is the dumb playthrough.
Ah, yes.
I love that this is a viable way to play the game. It feels so, I don't know, disrespectful, yet respectful at the same time.
It is one of the most beloved features of the game, and it's something that almost no modern games do because it requires so much extra writing, so much extra work.
Right. In most RPGs, intelligence is just a stat that gives you more mana or skill points. It's a math modifier.
It helps you solve puzzles faster, maybe. In Arcanum, if you drop your intelligence score below a certain threshold, I believe it's 5 out of 20, the game fundamentally changes the way you interact with the entire world.
Your character can't speak in full sentences, right? It changes your dialogue options.
Exactly. Your dialogue options change from, eloquent Victorian prose to just grunts and broken English. You'll say things like, "Me go now," instead of, "I shall take my leave." Or, my personal favorite, "I find shiny rock," instead of, "I've discovered a gemstone."
And the world treats you differently. The NPCs react to this.
Completely. And this is that reactivity we were talking about, that design by landslide. Some NPCs will take pity on you. They'll see a big, dumb half-ogre fumbling with his words and think, oh, you poor thing. And they might give you items for free or point you in the right direction because they think you're helpless.
But I imagine not everyone is that nice. This is a gritty world, after all.
Oh, no. The unscrupulous characters, the con artists, the thieves, the sleazy merchants, they see you as an easy mark. They will absolutely try to cheat you, lie to you, or exploit you because they think you don't understand what's happening.
It sounds like a completely different game script had to be written.
It basically is. I mean, the entire script of the game, every line of dialogue had to have a dumb version written for it.
That is an insane amount of work for a developer to do for a specific build that maybe only 5% of players will ever try.
It is.
Why go to that trouble? Why not just make intelligence a stat for spellcasting and call it a day?
Because that's Troika. That's designed by landslide.
Yeah.
They valued that depth and that simulation of reality over, say, making sure the combat was perfectly balanced or the frame rate was stable.
Right.
They wanted the world to feel real. And in a real world, a person with the intelligence of a toddler is going to have a very different day-to-day existence than a high-elf diplomat. It's all about immersion.
So we have this wildly ambitious team building this massive reactive world. Let's talk about the world itself. Because the central conflict isn't just good versus evil, it's magic versus technology. And I want to be clear here for the listener. This isn't just an aesthetic choice, right? It's not just wizards with top hats versus robots.
No, and this is where the world building gets truly fascinating. In most fantasy settings, if you have a steam engine and a wizard, they just sort of coexist. Maybe the wizard thinks the machine is loud and smelly, but that's the extent of their interaction.
Sure, they're just two different flavors in the same world.
In Arcanum, the conflict is metaphysical.
Yeah.
It's built into the fundamental laws of physics of the universe.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does that work? How can a steam engine conflict with a wizard on a physical level?
According to the game's manual, and again, the lore in this manual is incredible, it's written from the perspective of in-universe scholars debating this very topic. Technology operates by reinforcing natural laws. Physics, chemistry, friction, thermodynamics. It relies on the consistency and predictability of the universe. A gear turns because physics says it must. Gunpowder explodes because of a very specific chemical reaction.
Okay, that makes sense. That's our world. That's how our reality works.
Right. But magic, in the world of Arcanum, operates by subverting those laws. A spell works by changing the coefficient of friction, or altering the flow of energy, or just telling gravity to take a 5-minute break. So they are fundamentally physically incompatible forces. They are like oil and water.
So if they get too close?
If a powerful mage stands next to a complex piece of machinery like a steam engine, the mage's aura and their inherent tendency to bend and warp reality will cause the steam engine to malfunction. Maybe a gear slips for no reason, or a boiler explodes, or a gun just jams, because the laws of physics aren't working right in that localized area.
And it works the other way too, right? If you're a tech-heavy character, magic doesn't work on you as well.
Exactly. If you build a character who is a master of firearms and electricity, healing spells might just bounce off you or fizzle out. You have reinforced reality so much around your person that the magic can't take hold. It has no purchase.
And this isn't just lore, it's actually a gameplay mechanic, the magic tech aptitude meter.
Yes, there is a literal meter on your character sheet that goes from 100 on the magic side to 100 on the tech side. As you learn spells, the meter slides to the right, toward magic.
And as you learn tech schematics, like how to build a Tesla coil or a grenade, it slides to the left?
Correct. And the further you go in one direction, the more you fail at the other. And it affects equipment, too.
So if I'm the greatest engineer in the world, the most tech-aligned character possible, and I put on a magical ring of protection,
It just won't work. It's just a piece of metal on your finger. You are too grounded in reality for the enchantment to function. Conversely, if you're a master mage, a high-tech rifle might just misfire in your hands 50% of the time.
this has real narrative consequences too. I remember reading about the train system in the game. That's one of the best examples.
Yes, the train conductor in Tarrant. This is a classic example of how the mechanics inform the world building and make it feel so real.
If your magical aptitude is too high, they won't sell you a ticket.
They literally can't. You are a walking safety hazard, a liability. If you get on that train, there's a non-zero chance the engine might blow up mid-journey. So the conductor, in this very polite, bureaucratic way, tells you, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't let you board. We have a policy regarding those of the magical persuasion.
I love that.
You are effectively banned from public transport because you are too magical. You have to walk."
It grounds the fantasy in such a mundane, bureaucratic reality. Sorry, you're a wizard. You're an insurance liability. It really sells the world. You aren't just a hero on a quest. You're a citizen dealing with regulations and public safety notices.
And it sets the scene for how the game opens. The opening cinematic is iconic. The game opens with a crash. You are a passenger on the IFS Zephyr,
The luxury Zeppelin.
the absolute peak of technological luxury. It represents the height of human industrial achievement. And as you're flying over a mountain range, you get shot down. Not by a dragon, not by a wizard's spell, but by half-ogres piloting rickety steampunk aeroplanes.
Which is such a striking image. These primitive, clunky biplanes with ogres in the cockpit taking down this majestic Hindenburg-esque airship. It immediately tells you technology is dangerous and messy here. The sky isn't safe anymore.
You crash land, and you are the only survivor. Well, you and a dying gnome named Preston Radcliffe. He gives you a ring, whispers something about finding the boy, and then he dies. And suddenly, you are thrust into this world, this conflict, with no idea what's going on.
And the geography of the game just reflects this clash perfectly. You have Tarrant, which is the main human city, the center of the world, really.
Tarrant is fantastic. It's this Victorian, smog-choked industrial metropolis. It has factories, labor unions, slums, newspapers, a telegraph system. It feels like London in the 1880s, but with orcs working the assembly lines and gnomes running the banks.
And then, in stark contrast, you have places like Kintara.
The Elven City, which is the complete opposite. It's built into the trees of an ancient forest. It's pristine, magical, beautiful, but it feels isolated. It feels like it's shrinking. The elves are retreating from the world because the smog from Tarrant is spreading and poisoning their forest.
It creates this really melancholic atmosphere. The elves aren't just arrogant isolationists, which is the fantasy trope. They're a dying species. They're being paved over by progress, and they know it.
And the dwarves are caught right in the middle. They're naturally inclined toward technology smithing, mining, engineering, but they're also an ancient traditional race. They're adapting, but at a great cost to their culture. It's a setting that feels lived in and tired in the best possible way. It's not a shiny new fantasy world. It's an old world going through a painful, messy industrial revolution.
Okay, now, we can't talk about Arcanum without talking about the elephant in the room. Or maybe the bug in the room.
The meta history, yes.
This game was rough at launch. We're talking 2001.
That is putting it mildly. When Arcanum launched, it was notoriously buggy. And we aren't just talking about funny glitches where an NPC walks into a wall or a texture pops in.
Yeah.
We are talking about hard crashes to desktop. We are talking about quests that were just impossible to complete. Game-breaking states.
And a lot of it was just technical stuff, right? Compatibility issues with video cards.
Yes. If you had a 3DFX Voodoo 2 card, which was a very popular 3D accelerator card at the time, good luck. There were huge graphical artifacts. The game sprites would just turn into black boxes.
And the copy protection.
Oh, securement. The bane of early 2000s PC gamers. There were widespread issues with the securement copy protection, causing conflicts with certain CD-ROM drives. Some people couldn't even install the game they just bought. Imagine coming home with that big, beautiful box, so excited to play, and your computer just spits the disc back out at you.
Oh, that's soul-crushing. But beyond the technical glitches, the gameplay itself was often described as clunky.
The combat is usually the thing people point to as the weakest link. Troika tried to do something very difficult. They offered both turn-based combat, like in Fallout, and real-time combat, like Diablo or Baldur's Gate. And they let you toggle between them with the spacebar.
And usually, when a game tries to do two very different things, it does neither of them perfectly.
Correct. The implementation was chaotic, to be kind. In real-time mode, everyone moves at hyperspeed. It just becomes this frantic, Benny Hill-esque clickfest where you can't really use tactics. Your party members just run in and start swinging, and it's over in 3 seconds. Either you're dead or the enemy is.
It's not very strategic and turn-based.
It's functional, but incredibly unbalanced. The action point economy was easy to break, and magic, especially early game magic, was just wildly overpowered.
I've heard about the harm spell.
Ah, yes, the infamous Harm. It's a first-level spell in the Black Necromancy College. It costs very little mana, has a very low chance to fail, and it does direct damage that bypasses armor. Because of how the damage calculation worked, you could essentially just spam Harm and kill almost anything in the game, including the final boss.
Meanwhile, a master swordsman is...
A master swordsman might struggle to hit a sewer rat because the dexterity stats were bugged or the lighting penalty for fighting in a dungeon was too high. It was a mess.
One of the sources described it perfectly as a broken masterpiece. It has soul, but it is technically obtuse.
And this is where the story of Arcanum shifts from the developers to the community. Sierra, the publisher, eventually stopped supporting the game. They released a few official patches, fixed the most egregious crashes, and then that was it. Troika moved on to their next project, the Temple of Elemental Evil. But the fans didn't stop.
Enter the unofficial Arcanum patch, the UAP.
The UAP, this is crucial. If you go to buy Arcanum on Steam or GOG today, the first review you will see, the top comment, guaranteed, tells you to download the UAP before you even start the game.
And it does more than just fix bugs, right?
Oh, so much more. The community didn't just fix bugs, they restored content. They dug through the game's code and files and found entire quests that were unfinished, dialogue that was cut, items that were broken or implemented incorrectly. They fixed it all.
There was a specific example in the notes about a gun called the Hushed Revolver. I loved this detail because it perfectly encapsulates the state of the game at launch.
Right. It's a perfect microcosm of the game's problems. So in the base game, the Hushed Revolver is described as a silent weapon, perfect for stealth characters. It's expensive, it requires high-tech aptitude. You buy it thinking, finally, I can be a sneaky silent assassin. But due to a simple coding error, the sound file attached to it wasn't silent at all. It made just as much noise as a standard cannon. It had the wrong sound tag.
So you're sneaking through a dungeon, you think you're being subtle, you fire your silent gun, and it goes boom! And suddenly every guard in the building is alerted.
Exactly. It completely broke the stealth build if you relied on that weapon. It was worse than useless. The community patch fixed that. They went into code, swapped the sound tag, and finally, years after release, the gun worked as it was intended.
It's amazing to think about. The game is arguably more playable, more complete now, 20-something years later, than it was on the day it was released.
That speaks volumes about the quality of the writing and the world building. People were willing to wade through the bugs, the crashes, and the broken mechanics because the underlying game was so compelling. They loved it enough to fix it themselves. They didn't want to let this brilliant, broken thing die.
It's like owning a classic car. You know, it breaks down every 5 miles, the radio doesn't work, and it leaks oil, but you love it so much you learn how to fix the engine yourself.
That is a perfect analogy. Arcanum is a vintage Jaguar that catches fire occasionally, but when it runs, it's the most beautiful ride of your life.
So let's dive into that compelling writing. We promised a lore deep dive, and there are some really dark, really fascinating nuggets buried in this game. This isn't your standard save the princess from the dragon stuff.
No, Arcanum is not a cozy fantasy.
Yeah.
It has a gritty, noir undercurrent, and nothing exemplifies that better than the Gnome Conspiracy.
This one blew my mind when I first read about it. It sounds like something out of the X-Files, but with gnomes. So set the scene for us. You're in the city of Tarrant. It's the industrial hub.
Right. And as you walk around Tarrant, if you were observant, you start to notice something. The wealthy industrialists, the bankers, the factory owners, the city council members are almost all gnomes, and they're almost all guarded by half-ogres.
And half-ogres are, big, scary monsters, generally. In the wild, they're aggressive, brutish.
Usually, yes. But these bodyguards are different. They're incredibly strong and imposing, but oddly docile. They are obedient, they don't rampage, they just stand there and protect their gnomish masters with this almost zombie-like loyalty.
And as a player, you can start investigating this, wondering where they all came from.
If you dig deep enough, and this is a side quest, you can miss it entirely if you don't look for it, you uncover a conspiracy that is genuinely horrifying. It turns out that the gnomes, who control the banks and the industry, realize something. They are physically weak. They are small. In a world of orcs and ogres and angry unionizing dwarves, they are vulnerable.
They needed muscle to protect their wealth and power.
But they couldn't trust regular ogres, who are too wild and unpredictable, or humans, who might unionize or betray them for a higher bidder. They needed unquestioning loyalty.
So they decided to make their own.
They started a breeding program, and breeding program is a very clinical, sterile way to put it. The reality is brutal. They were systematically kidnapping human women and forcing them to breed with ogres on a secluded secret island called the Isle of Despair.
That is incredibly dark. That's body horror. That is the Handmaid's Tale level of darkness.
It is visceral horror. The half-ogres you see walking the streets of Tarrant, the docile ones, they are the result of generations of this forced breeding and psychological conditioning. They're bred to be strong, like ogres, but obedient enough to follow orders without question. They are essentially biological robots created through generations of trauma. The project was called the Half-Ogre Island Project.
And here is the kicker, right? The part that makes it truly noir, truly cynical. You can find the evidence. You can uncover the entire ugly truth. You can find the journal that details all of this. But can you actually do anything about it? Can you fix it?
Not really. And that is the brilliance and the cruelty of the writing. You can find the journal, you can confront the people involved, you can take it to the press. But the gnomes control the press. They control the government. They own the banks.
So the editor of the newspaper just tells you no.
The editor tells you, we can't run this. Do you know who owns this paper? I'd be ruined. The evidence gets taken from you, and the bad guys get away with it.
So the quest ends with nothing, no justice.
It ends with a payout, maybe.
Yeah.
The conspirators might offer you a large sum of money to shut up. Or, if you refuse, they just ignore you because you're powerless. Nobody will believe you. You might be able to save a few individuals on the island, but you can't tear down the system. It's a very cynical, very realistic take on how power and corruption work.
It really reinforces that this isn't a fairy tale. The hero doesn't always save the day and get a parade. Sometimes the hero just learns the ugly truth and has to live with it.
Exactly. And there is another major lore point that mirrors this sense of tragedy and systemic failure, the fate of the Black Mountain clan.
The missing dwarves. This is the main plot hook at the start of the game, right?
Yes. The game starts with the gnome giving you the ring and telling you to find the boy, and that leads you on a quest to find out what happened to this entire clan of dwarves. They just vanished from their mountain home. You spend the first half of the game basically being a detective, tracking their last known movements.
And usually in fantasy, if an entire clan of dwarves vanishes, it's because, I don't know, a dragon ate them. Or goblins attacked and they dug too deep.
Here it's political. It ties back directly to the Industrial Revolution. There is a character in Tarrant named Gilbert Bates. Think of him as the Bill Gates or the Thomas Edison of Arcanum.
Right, the name is not subtle.
Not at all. He is the tycoon who introduced the steam engine to humanity. He is seen as a genius inventor, a titan of industry. He is the richest man in the world.
But he didn't invent it, did he?
No. The backstory, which you uncover, is that as a young boy, Bates was found lost in the mountains and taken in by the Black Mountain clan dwarves. The dwarves had steam technology for centuries, but they kept it a closely guarded secret. They treated Bates like a son and showed him their technology.
And he stole it. Or was he given it?
Well, it's a bit ambiguous. He took the knowledge back to the human world. He sparked the Industrial Revolution. From his perspective, he thought he was helping. He thought he was uplifting humanity. But the elves were not happy about this at all.
Specifically, the Dark Elves. The Chazang.
Right? The elves saw technology as a fundamental threat to nature and to their magical power. They saw the smoke rising from human cities and knew it would eventually choke out their forests and their way of life. So they blamed the dwarves for leaking the secret.
And the punishment?
As punishment for sharing the secrets of steam technology with a human, the Dark Elves didn't just kill the Black Mountain clan. That would have been too merciful. They banished the entire clan to the Void.
The Void. What is that?
It's an interdimensional prison, a place of nothingness, outside of time and space. They just erased them from the world. So Gilbert Bates has spent his whole life thinking the dwarves died because of him, or that they left because they hated him for stealing their secrets. He lives with this immense crushing guilt. But in reality, they were suffering an eternal imprisonment because of a political power play by the elves.
Wow. It adds such a layer of tragedy to all the industrial progress. The trains and the factories and the clockwork robots in Tarrant. They are built on a foundation of betrayal and what is essentially a magical genocide.
It connects everything, the magic, the tech, the politics, the racism. It's all woven together into this messy, complicated history. It's not just orcs are bad, humans are good. Everyone has blood on their hands. Everyone is a little bit of a villain.
Speaking of things woven together or things that should have been, we have to talk about the sequel. Or, the lack thereof.
Ah, yes. Journey to the Centre of Arcanum. The ghost limb of the franchise.
This is one of the great what-ifs of gaming history. I get genuinely sad every time I read about this. It's the game that got away.
It really is tragic.
Yeah.
So after Arcanum, Troika started planning a sequel around 2004. But they wanted to shift the perspective. They wanted to use the Source engine.
The Valve engine, the one they used for Half-Life 2.
The very same. Troika was actually already using the Source engine for their other game, Vampire. The Masquerade Bloodlines, which is another beloved, buggy, cult classic. The plan was to use that same technology for Arcanum too.
So just stop and imagine that. Arcanum. but in first person. An immersive sim. You're looking down the iron sights of a flintlock pistol or seeing the spell effects shoot from your own hands.
The premise was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was directly inspired by Jules Verne's journey to the center of the Earth. You would play a character searching for Franklin Payne.
Franklin Payne, he's in the first game. He's the great white hunter character, the guy with the elephant gun and the pith helmet, the quintessential big game hunter and gentleman adventurer. He writes the dime novels about his adventures.
That's him. The plot was that he had gone missing on a great underground expedition, and his wife hires you to find him and bring him back.
And the setting would have been entirely subterranean. Lost worlds, weird creatures.
Mostly. And here is the mechanical hook that sounded so cool. The goal of the expedition was to find a special ore deep underground. The theory was that this ore had unique properties that would allow magic and technology to be combined without exploding.
Whoa. Okay, that solves the central conflict of the entire universe.
Or at least it evolves it. It moves the world forward. Imagine weapons that fuse spells and gears, a gun that shoots fireballs, or armor that is powered by clockwork but enchanted with magical protection. It would have revolutionized the gameplay in the setting.
And imagine the physics. Half-Life 2 was famous for its physics puzzles. The gravity gun was a game changer.
Exactly. Imagine using a telekinesis spell to pick up and throw barrels at enemies using the source physics engine, or building a tech gadget that works like the gravity gun. It would have been absolutely incredible.
So why didn't it happen? Why are we not playing Arcanum 2, Journey to the Center of Arcanum right now?
The usual tragedy. Business. Troika was struggling financially. Bloodlines was rushed out the door by the publisher and was also incredibly buggy at launch, which hurt their reputation and their sales.
I see a pattern here.
A definite pattern. And there were disputes between Sierra, the publisher, and Valve regarding the licensing for the source engine. Troika pitched the game to other publishers, but nobody bid. Ultimately, Troika Games ran out of money and had to close its doors in 2005.
It breaks my heart. A first-person steampunk RPG made by the Fallout creators on the Half-Life 2 engine. It sounds perfect. It sounds like BioShock before BioShock even existed.
It does. It's one of the great lost games. But in a way, the fact that it never existed preserves the mystique of the original.
Yeah.
It remains this singular, solitary, brilliant artifact. There's nothing else quite like Arcanum. It stands alone.
So let's wrap this up by looking at the legacy. Why does Arcanum endure? Why are we still talking about it 20-plus years later? Why are people still making patches for it in their spare time?
I think it comes back to that word we used at the very start, reactivity.
The game knowing who you are.
Modern games talk a big game about choices matter, but Arcanum really truly meant it. We talked about the dumb playthrough, but it goes so much deeper. If you play as a half-orc, you face systemic racism, shopkeepers will give you worse prices, people on the street will insult you, certain doors will be closed to you simply because of your race.
There's also the beauty stat, right? Which is wild.
Yes. If you play a character with low beauty, maybe you have a scar or you're just ugly, people are rude to you, they assume you're a bandit or a beggar. If you have high beauty, people are more willing to help you, they're more charming. It's a shallow world, and the game simulates that.
And gender plays a role, too, which was rare for the time.
It was. If you play a woman, Victorian gender roles apply. Gentlemen NPCs might be condescending. Certain quests might unfold differently because they don't take you seriously as an adventurer. You might have to work harder to prove yourself. The game reacts to your race, your gender, your intelligence, your appearance, your alignment, everything.
It respects the player's intelligence, or, as we discussed, their lack thereof.
It doesn't handhold. The manual was 190 pages long for a reason. You were expected to read it, to learn the world, to figure things out for yourself. And that depth, that respect for the player, extends all the way to the main villain, Kurgan.
The big bad, the necromancer at the end of the game.
His motivation isn't the typical, I want to rule the world. He's not Sauron. He's much more philosophical, but honestly a lot more terrifying. He has been alive for thousands of years. He has seen the endless cycle of life and death, the suffering, the wars, the pain. And he has come to the conclusion that life is inherently painful.
He thinks he's doing everyone a favor by ending it.
He wants to end all life because he genuinely believes the quiet of death is better than the agony of existence. He calls it the quiet. He's a nihilist, but a compassionate one in his own twisted way. He wants to stop the screaming of the universe.
And because this is a game by the Fallout creators, you don't necessarily have to fight him.
You can have a full-blown philosophical debate with the final boss. And if your persuasion and intelligence stats are high enough, You can convince him that he's wrong. You can argue that, look, life is painful, yes, but it's also beautiful. There is love, there is art, there is discovery. And you can actually talk him into surrendering, into accepting that his plan is flawed.
Or, and this is the part that still blows my mind, you can agree with him.
You can say, you know what, Kurgan? You make a good point. Life is pain. This all sucks. Let's end it. And you can join him. You can become his lieutenant and help him destroy the world. The game allows you to be the ultimate villain if you choose to be.
That is what I miss in so many modern games, the ability to just go completely off the rails, make the wrong choice, and have the game say, okay, you want to be the bad guy? Let's do that. Here's your evil ending.
It holds a place alongside Planescape, Torment, and Fallout. It really is the holy trinity of CRPG writing from that era. The mechanics might be shaky, the graphics are dated, but the soul of the game, the writing, the reactivity, it's unmatched.
It's a testament to ambition. I'd rather play a broken game that tries to do everything than a polished game that tries to do nothing new at all.
Well said. It's a beautiful, beautiful mess.
So here is a final provocative thought for you and for our listeners to chew on. We talked about how you can talk the villain into suicide or join him in ending all life. But consider this. In a world where magic and technology are fighting a war for the very laws of physics, who actually wins in the long run?
Well, in the game, technology is clearly on the rise. The elves are retreating. The old magic is fading from the world.
Exactly. If industry keeps expanding, if science keeps explaining the unexplainable, does magic just vanish? Does the fantasy genre literally die out within the game's world to be replaced by the sci-fi genre? Is Arcanum actually a simulator of the death of fantasy itself?
That is a haunting thought.
Yeah.
And looking at our own history, technology usually wins. The magic fades.
Okay.
The forests are cut down. The steam engine doesn't stop.
On that cheery note, thank you for listening to this deep dive into Arcanum. Whether you are a longtime fan or someone hearing about this broken masterpiece for the very first time, we hope you enjoyed the journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring the void with you.
Thanks for listening to Of Steam and Sorcery. We'll see you in the next one.